Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This happened about 1 year ago. So it was my brother's birthday in a week of this happening, so I went to a shop to get him something. And I went with my friend, let's call him John. I looked for a while and noticed a Nintendo Switch 6 months membership gift card, which there was only one left of. So then I walked around the shop with John to get something for us. We started to hear a kid cry near the gift card section, and the gift card section was at one side of the shop. We were at the other. Very loud. When we were about to pay, we saw the entitled kid with his entitled mother. They saw me with my gift card and said, "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" My friend replied, "We're just paying." "Why? Can my son have that gift card?" "No. Can you leave us alone now?" "How dare you threaten me like that? It's my son's birthday today and he needs that gift card, otherwise he will be in a bad mood for the rest of the day." I could see the entitled kid was behind me, trying to tackle me, which made my friend laugh. "How dare you laugh at my child? Don't make me call the police. I've got 12 people arrested." She then started yelling when we ignored her. "Give me it, you brats. You're 14. You don't need it anyway. Play fair on the younger kids." We had it first. If you don't like it, then go away. Anyway, just why does your kid need toys? Save it for the babies. She then screamed at the top of her lungs, "Security!" The security came running over, and at this point I was thinking, oh crap, I'm not good at these kind of things, and normally get really shaky. What seems to be the problem? These two brats took my purchased gift card that I was buying for my son's birthday tomorrow. "Didn't you say it was today?" My friend said that. "Liar! Liar! Kick him out!" At this point, there was a crowd which was shocked by what they were seeing. The security said to the entitled mother, "Can I have some proof, please? If you don't, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "No. Why should I show proof for something I know?" I replied with a smile. "By the way, your son is still trying to get my gift card." "It's not yours, it's mine, and let him do what he wants to." The security guard said, "I'm going to ask you to leave if you don't show proof of purchase." She then said, "Fine. You just lost a customer for life." I found that very funny because of the fact that it was Asda, a huge UK supermarket company owned by Walmart. The security guard apologized to us and said that she always causes a lot of trouble around here, and she will be banned from all Asdas if she does it again. We purchased it and walked to our homes. Now my friend told me what happened after, so it may not be entirely accurate, as I wasn't with him when this happened. The entitled mother followed John all the way home, trying not to make him notice. The entitled kid shouted out that my friend was a couple meters away, and the entitled kid ran up behind him to see if he had it. The woman yelled that he should give it to her now, and then tried to slap him when he said that he doesn't have it. But he dodged. She was trying to slap my friend on the legs, which he dodged, and hit her own kid instead. Long story short, she was arrested. Long-time reader, first-time poster. I don't even know if it goes here, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Back in 2006, I worked for one of those big box stores that had an IT box, formerly known as Nerd Hurt, where people could bring devices in to get serviced if there was a problem. We were located in Columbus, Georgia, which is right over a bridge from Phoenix City, Alabama. This is important because where our store was placed, we would normally get a lot of servicemen and women coming up from Fort Benning who were generally pretty cool. But we would also get folks mostly from Alabama who were, let's just say, slightly unfavorable to folks of a certain skin color or gender. No offense to those who live in Alabama who are totally awesome. You know who you are. Now, I am a 5'1" girl who at the time weighed a total of 120 pounds soaking wet. I was practically a hobbit. I was also one of the lead technicians in the department. I was the one the new hires went to if they were confused or couldn't troubleshoot certain problems. The team I worked with was amazing. The general manager of the store was great and the supervisor of my department was a man. I would regularly go out for drinks with these people. One of the best places I've ever worked even though it was retail. One day, I am working the counter to check customers in and do evaluations and diagnostics to give an estimate of what the repair price would be. And in comes, let's call him Joe. He wore a cut-off t-shirt, worn denim jeans, and a baseball cap with a Confederate flag on it that just barely covered his business in the front, party in the back haircut. I am not one to judge on looks. I've had plenty of people come in looking exactly the same way this guy did, who has been an absolute delight to work with. Never judge a book by its cover, kids. But I still have my defenses up just in case. I really hoped they wasn't going to go the not-so-friendly route. I was unfortunately wrong about dear Joe. Joe walks up to the counter with his PC tower and practically slams the unit on the desk. I need this fixed. It's broken. Okay, sir, let me have a look and I'll see if I can. Joe cuts me off and stares at me with a disgusted look on his face. Excuse me? Well, if you just give me a moment, sir, I'll be able to take a look at your computer and… Oh, hell no. It was at this point that I realized where this was inevitably going to go wrong. I tell him, unfortunately, sir, I won't be able to give you an estimate if you don't let me diagnose your computer. There is no way in hell a woman knows about computers. I am not letting you touch my computer. Get me the manager. Oh yes, I thought, this is going to be awesome. I'm sure he wanted to talk to the general manager of the store, but I couldn't resist. Cue malicious compliance. I could have pulled the I'm the manager thing because I was one of the senior staff, but my direct boss was actually out back working on repair projects, and I couldn't help but get excited about how this was going to go down. Me, as lovely as sweet tea. Of course, sir. Right away, sir. Mike, my supervisor, the guy who ran our department and not the general manager of the store, was elbow deep in the motherboard replacement when I walked in and gave him the biggest grin. Hey Mike, there is a guy out there asking for the manager. He looked at me confused because he was just a supervisor, but I then proceeded to tell him exactly what was waiting for him out front. His face split into the brightest smile. He then proceeded to walk out to the front. Have I mentioned that Mike is a 6'3", 280-pound black man who looked like he could eat a Mack truck for lunch? He was such a big, lovable teddy bear. We all adored him. The moment Mike stepped out, the customer freaked. Hello, sir. I hear there is a problem. Joe lost it. It starts with a heck no before devolving into a racist tirade that I have never witnessed in my life. I'm from Massachusetts, so this was awful, yet amazing to watch. Like a car crash, I just couldn't look away. Not that we have no racism in the Northeast, but damn. Joe kept screaming using the nastiest slur, the one, over and over again while staff and customers alike watched in blatant horror. Security ended up having to come over to try to calm the man down. Our entire security team was black as well, so naturally Joe went even more crazy. Eventually, the police had to be called because the man was threatening me, calling me a witch and other names, and threatening security and my boss using that word that is not okay. My general manager got called out of his office and immediately called the police to have the man removed. God bless whichever dispatcher who received the call was, because they dispatched 2 black officers to the scene. Me and my general manager were literally the only white people involved in this train wreck, aside from bigoted Toe. And I watched with unbridled glee as Joe was cuffed and taken away by the police. Watching Joe foam at the mouth as he was dragged away made my whole week. Thank you for the entertainment, bigoted Joe. Backstory. My dad is a high school assistant principal. It's currently his first year at a new school, and it's a much better school than the last one he was at, which was overpopulated, drunk-filled, and many of the students there had to have free or reduced lunches. There were fights almost every week, and my dad had to suspend kids almost every day. His new school is much better, with just 2 incidents all year. One was an autistic kid who had an episode, and the one I'm about to tell you, find Redditors about. To clarify, any dialogue I might include will obviously not be 100% correct, because the original incident took place about 2 months ago, and I'm not 100% sure what started it, but either the bus driver accidentally bumped into the entitled girl while he was dropping her off, or he told off the entitled girl for saying something rude, but she got pissed off and texted her mother about it. The entitled mother came out of her home and started yelling at him, and he just drove off. The next morning, the bus driver went to pick up the entitled girl, but when he got to her driveway, she wasn't there. The entitled mother, the entitled brother, and the entitled sister were. He opened the door to ask where the entitled girl was, and that's when all three of them boarded the bus. The entitled girl is a junior, I think. Her older brother was around 22, and her older sister was in college. These people were all adults, and all three of them started screaming at the poor bus driver, threatening him, calling him slurs, and telling him off. The rest of the kids on the bus were expectedly scared. The moment the three of them got off the bus driver sped away, and the one thing the entitled family forgot to think about was the fact that there are 4 HD cameras equipped with audio sensors on every bus in our county. They got everything. The poor dude got the rest of the kids to school and went straight to the front office. My dad was pissed. He got a video feed from the bus, called his school cop who called some other cops, and had the entitled mother arrested for malicious harassment, intimidation, trespassing, and a few other things. My dad's principal let my dad have control over the whole situation because he knows my dad does not frick around with these kinds of things. So my dad helped the bus driver get some revenge. First, he had the entitled girl switch to a different bus route so she couldn't mess with the bus driver anymore. Then he had the entitled brother, sister, and mother permanently banned from the school grounds. And then he gave the bus driver a month of paid time off. These were just petty revenge, if that. Working with their lawyer, my dad got statements from most of the kids who were on the bus, and they decided to press charges against only the entitled mother and the entitled brother, who had apparently been in the middle of a 6-month probationary period for a different crime, so he was essentially guaranteed jail time. Going into the trial 6 weeks ago, nobody expected the entitled mother to get any more jail time than a week, if that. My dad, his principal, and the school cop were all in the courthouse in case they needed to be called as witnesses. They were not. Their lawyer made his remarks, and the entitled mother's lawyer just tried to get her sentence reduced. He knew they were going to lose anyway because the videos weren't even shown to the judge because there was so much other evidence. But the judge surprised everyone when he gave the entitled mother a 30-day sentence. He made it very clear to her that she had threatened the life of a man, endangered kids, and trespassed on school property for no reason besides that the bus driver had told off her entitled girl and that she should be punished accordingly. My dad and his principal were trying not to cheer, but that wasn't even the best part. The entitled brother skipped his trial. They were back-to-back trials, so there is no way he could have forgotten. The judge immediately issued a bench warrant for his arrest. He was caught the next day in the entitled mother's house. When brought in front of the judge, he was given a year in prison for breaking his probation, skipping his trial, and for the same charges as his mother. If that isn't pro-revenge, I don't know what is. As for the entitled girl, well, she switched schools. Hello lads, I wanted to share a story with you. I'm a 23-year-old university student in Slovakia, so please keep in mind English is my third language. The story revolves around our prom night in our funds, 2014-2015. In my secondary school of business commercial academy, we used to pay 50 euros into the fund each year to save up for the prom. We had 29 students and accumulated 5,800 euros over the period of 4 years. The last year, we had to appoint a parent who will take care of the finances, managing the account, paying for the things we need, handling the alcohol, and so on. Unfortunately, the entitled mother nominated herself. Other parents were just like, meh, I don't want to do that. This is where the story begins. The entitled mother was also a mayor in a small village I live in. My school was only about 5-minute drive from my house to my school in a town nearby. I had also been a really good friend with her son Ted when we were younger. Ted changed and became unbelievably spoiled over the years. When we entered our new school, he started rubbing his high life and how rich he is in everyone's faces. Standard rich spoiled a-hole. He was the first to get his new car, always a new iPhone, going on expensive vacations and so on. Simply nobody could be better or richer than him. As we come close to the prom night, we quickly find out that our funds are almost drained out. The girls in our class were really shocked. They had planned the prom to the smallest detail, with every cent put to use. We even had to end with 600 euros at the end of the prom. Suddenly we had the last 50 euros in the bank account. Back then, we didn't really care. The entitled mother just took more money than she should and she will return it later. We asked the entitled mother where she spent the money and she just replied, "I had spent it where you told me to. The rest I will put back." I didn't believe a single word, but since it was a night before the prom, we didn't care. The prom was nice, we had lots of fun, inviting parents and teachers alike, with the best possible food and drinks for the evening. The next day we went over our account and found out we were actually 600 euros in debt. What the hell just happened? We first checked with the entitled mother. She gave 200 euros to the photographer, paid him even 200 euros for the job well done. Really stupid. And even another 200 euros to get Blu-ray discs instead of regular DVDs or CDs. We bought her BS. For a time. We called the photographer, and lo and behold, he only received 200 euros. Question was, where did the rest of the money end up? He guessed it. In the entitled mother's pocket. It was not only that. A couple of 100 euros here and 100 euros there, and you get the picture. We estimated that out of the 5,800 euros we originally had, she borrowed 1,200 euros. We told our class teacher and our parents about that. They were all furious at her. She was asked to present cash register receipts to see where the money went. She was read the whole day as she was trying to falsify the receipts. Eventually, nobody bought into her lies anymore. She was asked multiple times to cover the losses, but she had always found an excuse. Couldn't press charges as the fund was rather voluntary and we had no official documents, plus we gave her all the information how to withdraw the money and the credit card. Eventually, our graduation came along. We had no more money to make a small feast for the teachers before the graduation as we would never see each other again. Some of the parents volunteered to bake and cook something for the teachers, and the entitled mother came as well. And she even had the courage to eat from the table our parents voluntarily made, free of cost. She was even asked to stay outside and was not allowed to enter until she pays her debt. A few days after, I got a Facebook notification from Ted, and boy, the audacity. If everyone in the class would give 20 euros more, we would cover the expenses. Suddenly, a rich brat turns into a choosing beggar. I told him no. He had a party in the evening since it was his birthday, so I went there. I handed him a bottle of Jack Daniels because he gave it to me on my birthday, saying I could never afford it myself. And I told him, "We're done. I'm not your friend anymore." I couldn't let it slide. Her husband had covered the expenses eventually, but it wasn't good enough. She stole from her son and from his classmates. From what I know, she's a fraud. Tax evasion, accountancy fraud, falsifying documents, and even extortion. What we did is, we rounded up what evidence we had on her for stealing from our fund, and we handed it all to the prosecutor who was investigating her case, working on her corruption charges at that time. It would give a great profile of the person who steals from her son. The trial was delayed several times due to her knowing some people, but eventually we put her under so much stress she couldn't even think straight. We sometimes wrote messages on her Facebook page asking for her confession to the police and even sending emails to her detailing her scam. After a while, she was making even bigger mistakes. She was trying to avoid this trial as much as possible. She wouldn't want to be confronted by stealing from a prom fund from her son, but her actions got to her first. There are still ongoing corruption investigations, 3 I know of, as well as abuse of powers as a public official. There is also a warrant to arrest her, don't know if they really did. Since the last trial of another scam, she even had to pawn her house, sell her car, and even her son's motorcycle. She's now in hiding. Ted didn't make it far either. As a spoiled brat, he was unable to find a steady job, had like 8 jobs in 2 years, and dropped out of college after only 1 winter semester. Rumors have it he deals in pot nowadays. The only person I pity is the entitled mother's husband, kid's father. He was the only actual nice guy in their family. Even stood up for me once in primary school. The entitled mother didn't want to pay money she borrowed from a bunch of other people in his name, so she made him announce bankruptcy and possible insanity. To this day, he's still married to her, as far as I know. As I remember him, he once told me family is the most important thing a man can look up to make him feel proud, to feel like you are a part of something. Now, I feel like he has nowhere else to go but to stay with her. I'll start out by saying that my actions helped to precipitate the pro-revenge, but that I can't really take credit for causing everything that followed. This was 7-ish years ago in upstate New York. I had moved there for graduate school and knew no one. The first place I lived was with roommates I found on Craigslist. This was the first place I had ever rented in my life, with my name on a lease, where I was essentially responsible for myself. The roommates I had were damn shady, and the place was a wreck, but cheap at least. I made a few friends in the first couple of months, and by about November, they were talking about finding places for the following year, which is common in a lot of college towns. 3 of my friends found a place together, and so I decided to find a place with my 2 other friends. We will call them Pat and Dora. We look around a bit, and we end up finding a place a few houses down from our other 3 friends. We signed the lease in late November. Like a lot of the housing in this area, it's a house with 2 apartments. One upstairs, that would be us, and one downstairs, we later found out, for undergrads. And a shared basement/garage. The landlord seemed pretty swell too. Included in our rent are snow removal and water. Heat, power, and internet are not. In this area especially, this is common as heat is expensive. Also, chatting with the landlord about this, he explains to us that to have separate billing for multi-unit housing, you need to have the separate meters for each unit, legally. He goes on to say that for this, and most properties, this is pretty easy to do for electricity, but a lot harder and expensive to do for water, which is why most places that are multi-unit include water. The school year comes and goes and we move in at the beginning of June. No problems. Toward the end of August, our landlord calls and tells us he's selling the place. Not to worry though, our lease is still good of course, and the new guy owns some properties already. Cool, whatever. We get the new address to send a check to. The new landlord seems fine. We called in October about a power outlet not working, he got it fixed. He's good about snow removal, no real problems. Also, he's from New Zealand. Tells us he owns a dozen or so properties in the area. We barely interact with the downstairs neighbors. They are alright for undergrads. And over the course of the year, we only have a half dozen interactions where we need to ask them to keep it down, because it's 4 a.m. on a Wednesday, or to ask to let someone out who's parked in. Notable is that the school we're talking about here is fairly expensive, and most of the undergrads come from backgrounds with a fair amount of money. You'd need to in order to afford the school, or take out a heap of loans. Downstairs neighbors have really nice cars and a lot of nice stuff in the garage. Seems likely they come from money. They also let us have their beer bottles and cans to recycle, which is really nice of them and nets like $10 to $20 a week. The second year comes and goes, we move out, I move out first, over Memorial Day, since I'm working in Asia for the summer and then moving out of state. I don't see the place again, but ask the roommates to clean well enough so we get some of the deposit back. I don't figure this out until later, but it seems that every interaction with the landlord is something he stretches to the absolute limit of what he's allowed. 30 days, 2 weeks, whatever. I left for Asia and in early July emailed Pat and Dora about if they have received their deposits back. I gave my parents' addresses forward. They had, and Dora sent me a scan of it. Going through, we each lost $70 for cleaning and damage. And then there was a bill for $52 for the water bill. I don't know how they left it, so I guess maybe it took $70 to clean. So it goes. I remember that water was included in the rent. I bring this up with both of them, which they remember as well. I emailed the landlord and mentioned this to him. At this point, I assume he maybe has a different setup at other properties and made an honest mistake. Accident happened. I heard back from the landlord 2 weeks later. He asked to see a copy of the lease. Reflecting on this, I assume he thought I wouldn't have access to one since I was in Asia. I have Dora and Pat scan me the lease, mail him a copy, and email it to him. I hear back 2 weeks later and he says he'll send us the money. By the time I get the money, it's late August and I'm home from Asia. Yay, I got my $52 back. Talking to Dora and Pat a few weeks later, Pat had just gotten engaged and was Skyping the whole old crew. I found out neither of them had gotten their $52. At this point, I was pissed. Clearly, that was not an honest mistake. The landlord assumed I didn't talk to them and that they wouldn't find out. Pat and Dora are pissed. I am pissed. We dig out the contact information from the undergrads who live downstairs and let them know what's up. We also let the current residents know what happened since we happen to have contact info for some of them. We write them an email and I provide copies of all my emails with the landlord and a lease. I hear from Pat and Dora that they got their money 30 days later and that the landlord was a jerk about it. I don't think about it for a long time even though I'm still in touch with Pat and Dora. About 2 years after this happened, I got an email from a law firm asking if I used to live at an old address and if the landlord was my landlord. I reply yes and they asked to speak on the phone. The law firm belongs to one of the undergrad's dads. This is how he could afford expensive schooling. Through the course of the conversation, it comes out that Dad was really angry about this, that someone would try to take advantage of his son. He has the time and resources to go scorched earth on a landlord. Dad brings a case against the landlord and has his people comb through all of the landlord's records, former tenants and so on. As it turns out, he's been scamming people like this for quite a while. Pertinent here also was the fact that he didn't have separate water meters. The lawyer explained to me that because of this, the landlord is facing jail time. He apparently did enough of this, and they were able to provide evidence for it, that it rose to the level of some more serious crap like a criminal case over a civil one, I think. On top of this, I am getting my $70 back, and so are Dora and Pat as part of some settlement deal. The landlord might have to sell his properties. The kicker is that, as it turns out, the landlord's legal status could be in jeopardy because of this being a serious crime. Again, I don't really remember the particulars and don't know if this lawyer was exaggerating. I really just wanted my $52 back for the water bill. Let's start off with a summary of my job. As I said, I'm a truck driver for a local sod company. Sod is pre-grown grass that gets the soil underneath dug up and then rolled up onto pallets to be placed on a yard instead of using grass seed that takes a while to grow. We mostly deliver it to new developments so people have a yard when they move into their brand new home. We also deliver to homeowners that order it from time to time. The important part for this story is that we also deliver to the local Lowe's and Home Depot in the area, as well as a few other landscaping stores. Typically, we deliver it at night to avoid traffic and crowded parking lots, but sometimes I'll run doubles, which will force my hand and have me run during store hours. Here is a cast. There is me, a mediocre employee, the idiot mom, the curious kid, about 7 or so, and the manager. So I'm working a typical day with a good number of Home Depot and Lowe's stores for the day. And it's evening, around 7 or 8 at Lowe's. I park my truck down by the garden area, activate my hazards, and hop out of the truck, and get to work unstrapping the sod. This location had 4 pallets going here. I turn on the forklift on my trailer so I can get myself unloaded. As I'm doing this, the idiot mom and the curious kid are walking by, and the kid gets really curious as to how my forklift gets on and off the trailer and asks me before I hopped up onto the lift. I wondered that for a while myself before getting this job, so I was more than happy to answer. I explained to the kid that basically I put the forks of the lift into a slot on the trailer and lower the forks. And since it can't go down with a trailer holding it, and the trailer is firmly on the ground, it instead lifts the forklift and then pull the forks in, but again firmly in the trailer. So it instead pulls the lift up against the trailer. I do the opposite to get it off. The curious kid is wide-eyed at this, though I'm sure he doesn't quite get my explanation. I say, "You're more than welcome to watch me get it off." The curious kid turned to his mom. "Can I, Mom?" "Of course, dear. I need to get mulch, so I'll be at the register paying for it." I thought of this as no big deal as the register was close by and in full view of where I was. I proceed to get on a lift and get it out of the trailer. All the while, the kid watches in amazement. I go and take several of the pallets out of the truck and place them in their designated spots. One of the pallets unfortunately breaks and falls apart. We reuse pallets and some seem in good condition when we harvest the sod, so it happens from time to time. Annoying, but no big deal. We just restack it on a different pallet. I hop off the lift and go to stack the fallen sod onto one of the pallets already there that had the previous delivery sod on it. I usually leave the lift on because, well, I am not a fan of the company for reasons I won't go into, so I don't go out of my way to save money for them, like saving gas. As I'm moving the fallen sod onto the pallet, the idiot mother comes up to me with a receipt in her hand. "Excuse me, but when you're done, I need a pallet of mulch loaded on the back of my pickup." She points back to a truck parked near my 18-wheeler. "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't actually work here. I just deliver the sod." "Don't give me that just because you want to be lazy. I appreciate you keeping my kid entertained and all that, but I'm in a hurry." As I said before, I don't work for Lowe's. I just deliver the sod. I'm sure the cashier has already called for someone to come help you out. I used to work for a Home Depot, so I know for a fact they did. "Well, you're here now, so you can help me now. Or I am calling for your manager." I laugh at this, as one, my manager doesn't put up with behavior like this, so I'm amused on how that conversation will go. And two, I'm amused that people think that this is a trump card that will get people to do what they want. "Are you making fun of me?" "No, ma'am, forgive me, but I can't load your truck for the reason that's out of work here, so if I damaged your truck while getting the pallet on, I could be held liable. Not for Lowe's or my work, and while I'm very good with the lift, I'd rather not try my luck." "Why don't you wait for an actual employee to help you?" She huffs and says, "Fine then, I'll find some other way." She starts to walk away dragging her kid, and I think that's the end of it. But boy, was I wrong. As I'm returning back to restacking the fallen sod, the idiot mother stops just by the lift on her way back to her truck, and an idea forms in her head. I look just in time to see her hop up into the seat of my still running lift. Oh heck. If you've never used a lift designed to be on a truck before, they are quite different from most lifts you see in stores like Home Depot and Sam's Club. I've used lifts at both. Mine has two pedals, one for power on the right and the other to control forward and backwards on the left. I nearly press the left pedal plenty of times while climbing on it. It's that close to the edge of the driver's compartment. It is that close to the edge of the driver's compartment. While I'm trying to get over to her to stop her, she steps on the left pedal, causing it to move forward. This startles her and she panically sits down and her other foot presses down on the right pedal, causing the speed to go from a slow crawl to a full sprint. Now mind you, these lifts aren't the fastest in terms of top speed, but boy do they have some incredible acceleration to them. She flies forward and quickly grabs the steering wheel, turning it. This causes the lift to turn right and slams the side of it into me, throwing me onto the ground. She regains herself enough to turn the wheel straight, but not enough to realize to stop the lift. She just has to lift her feet off the pedal. I seriously wonder how she got her license. Instead, she reaches for the levers that control the boom. She looks up in time to see she is heading straight for my truck and tries to stop the lift by pulling a lever. A witness stated that it looked like she was scared, not that she was intentional or angry. Instead of stopping the lift, she lifts the forks on the lift up and slams it into my truck, forks piercing into my hood. Finally, the lift comes to a halt and the engine shuts off since she is still pressing the pedal at this point. She finally hops off as the manager runs onto the scene. I assume he was called because of the argument earlier and had less to do than workers called to help the idiot mom, resulting in his quicker response. What the hell happened? I'm on the ground writhing in agony, thinking I'm going to die this time. The cashier who checked out the idiot mom ran to my aid while the manager goes to her to try and figure out what happened. I couldn't speak, but I could still barely see and hear clearly. The mom, she says, still shook up from the crash. This employee of yours was refusing to load my mulch onto my truck, so I decided I was going to do it myself instead. She's holding onto her kid who's crying his eyes out thinking his mom was really hurt. Him? The manager asks her, pointing to me. That guy doesn't even work for this company. He's just a delivery driver. At this point I'm realizing that I'm not going to die. But instead I had the wind knocked out of me. A sprained ankle and a broken wrist along with a bag full of cuts and scape. The cashier yelled to the manager that I was okay but still needed an ambulance. The police were first to the scene and were quick to arrest the entitled mother since she all but confessed that she hit me. Before being driven off to the hospital, they asked if I wanted to press charges. Trust me, I really thought of doing it, but her kid was really sweet and even tried to make sure I was okay. I was saying he was sorry his mom did that, so for his sake, I declined. Besides, I was 3 hours away from where I live, so I'd have to come all the way out here if I wanted to follow through with it every time there was a hearing. So that's the other reason. The officer did reassure me that with the camera and witness reports, that she was going to get charged with destruction of property, disorderly conduct, and a few other charges, and that for those, I just needed to provide a written statement later. Her insurance also covered the damage to the truck, which totaled almost $30,000 due to a good chunk of damage being in the engine. My boss had not only get a tow truck out there, but a replacement truck to grab the trailer, since the tow truck wasn't allowed to tow a trailer unless the truck was picked up from the side of the road. It's been 2 weeks and I'm fine now and I'm back on a job. The rental truck is automatic, which is the only reason I'm glad for automatics. Cause I still have the gas on, and it's going to be another month or two before my truck is out of the shop. Last I heard was that the entitled mother pled guilty to all the charges at the advice of her lawyer and had to spend 6 months in jail and do community service and probation. She was also banned from all lows. No surprise there. And to answer the question of why I didn't just take it easy while my leg was healing, I simply just can't sit around and do nothing. I've always had myself busy and have done this since getting out of college. Also, I get paid way more working my job, even at half my normal time, than what my insurance is paying me being out. It is, so one of the popular questions I kept getting asked is why I didn't press charges on her. To be quite honest, it's mostly because of her son. Now obviously I'm not going to put her entire conversation for the sake of space, but we did talk a little more than I put in the story. He was a very cute kid and very curious of the world around him. Before I met my wife now, I've had an ex who had a son that I absolutely adored and wished that she wasn't such a not so nice lady that she still let me see him, but she doesn't unless she's there and she's constantly helicopter parenting him to the point where neither of us really enjoy our time together anymore. The kid reminded me so much of him, and I really didn't want to take his mom away from him for so long, knowing that she was already going to get charged with several different things as is. I get it. Maybe some of you don't agree with that reasoning, but that's how I feel, and that's what I'm going to stick with. The second thing people keep asking me about is how her insurance covered all the damage. Honestly, I really can't answer that question. That's what my boss had told me when I was a little worried about the company's insurance. Fear of it affecting my health insurance in the future mostly. And that's just the response that he gave me. I don't know anything about insurance and will never claim I do. My boss is one of those guys who will yell at you for every wrongdoing that happens. It acts all buddy-buddy with you and tells you exactly what you want to hear when everything's fine and hunky-dory. All I know for sure is that my medical bills are paid, the truck is being repaired with no out-of-pocket to me, and my wages lost for the 2 weeks I was out is covered.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.